And we turn now to a Fox News alert in Iraq. New violence in Baghdad. A car bomb exploding, killing 10 people and wounding 21. Meanwhile, the radical insurgent group that captured two major cities in northern Iraq now posting graphic photos showing its fighters massacring dozens of captured Iraqi soldiers. Connor Powell, live from our Mideast Jerusalem bureau with more. Connor?
Arthur, we're watching the violence in Iraq escalate. We're also seeing the brutality increase there. The militants are continue their move across the country. They're only about 60 or so miles outside Baghdad, the capital, really knocking on the doors there. But they control now the major cities of Fallujah, Mosul, and Tikrit. They appear, though, right now to be consolidating their gains in these cities before moving into Baghdad, bringing unusual, brutal methods, essentially killing anyone who opposes them. In some cases, we're hearing people are being beheaded. Their goal to create a unified Islamic State across Iraq and Syria. In Basra and in Baghdad, hundreds of volunteers answering calls by the country's top Shiite cleric to take up arms and fight against the insurgents. Now, Iraq's Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki and the Baghdad-led government there is dominated, of course, by Shiite Iraqs, and they maintain strong ties with Iran, while the insurgents are Sunni Muslims. In recent months, Maliki has consolidated power in the hands of his fellow Shias and alienated the Sunni population in Iraq. Well, they've in turn now welcoming with open arms these insurgents. Adding to the complications really in Iraq is the fact that the pro-American Kurds in the north taking advantage of all of this chaos, capturing Kirkuk, an oil-rich city. As a precaution, the Pentagon has sent the USS George H.W. Bush to the Arabian Gulf, though the White House says it is still weighing all of its options. Arthel, right now there are really few good choices for the U.S. right now. They're, of course, looking at options, but any decisions that are made to intervene in Iraq may come way too late. The country is really disintegrating before our very eyes, Arthel.
Connor Powell, thanks so much, Connor. Eric?
Well, Arthel, with those Sunni militants on the doorstep of Iraq's capital, just 60 miles away, and the White House considering those possible military options, what, if anything, can the administration do? Or is it too late? Joining us on the phone is former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, John Bolton, a Fox News contributor and senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Ambassador, what do you think went so wrong to get to this point?
Well, I think the Obama administration's decision some years ago to withdraw all American forces removed the critical political stabilizing force inside Iraq. It wasn't that the force was so large, but that it represented America's commitment to Iraqis, whether they're Kurds or Sunni Arabs or Shia Arabs, to try and form a responsible government. And when we left, al-Maliki and his masters in Tehran basically had a free ride. And over the past several years, al-Maliki has shown he is incapable of governing a fully confessional Iraq. And therefore, the al-Qaeda extremists, the ISIL, this group that's now on the move, took advantage of Sunni discontent, and that's why we're here. And so that goes to the basic point. I think once the Obama administration made the decision to withdraw American forces, I think we'd have to say, we can certainly say with 20/20 hindsight, what we're seeing today was inevitable.
Well, one reason the forces were withdrawn is al-Maliki wouldn't sign that status of forces agreement. So does that put the fault on al-Maliki, or do you think the administration could have negotiated something to keep some of those advisors there that perhaps could have prevented this?
I think the evidence is overwhelming that had the United States pushed more seriously, and one could say we should have done this more effectively in the Bush administration too, we could have gotten the protection against the liability for American service members that was the hang-up in the status of forces agreement.
And then you think this wouldn't have happened?
Well, we don't know for sure, obviously, but we can say that the president used that issue as the excuse he needed to do what he always wanted to do anyway. He had made that clear. He wanted out. He got out. This is the consequence.
But the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, they want to have a swath of an Islamic State throughout that whole region. And what happens to Iraq? Does it get split up and partitioned, a Shiite, a Sunni, and a Kurd area? Can that ground they've taken be recaptured? What is the future now for that country?
I think Iraq, the best bet you can make, obviously we don't have really accurate information from the battlefield, but the best guess at this point would be we are headed toward partition. I think that's what the Kurds' capture of Kirkuk signifies that they are putting their chess pieces in place to hold Kurdistan independent. But I want to say one thing that I have not seen captured in many news accounts. The ISIL forces may have made a real mistake here by opening a full second front against the combined al-Maliki and Iranian forces. You know, Assad in Syria has had the momentum against the opposition as a whole, and now, in effect, like Hitler invading Russia and creating a second front during World War II, I think they've made a mistake here, at least if, as I expect, Iran will do whatever it takes for them to keep the al-Maliki regime in power.
And hopefully not become a client state of Tehran. Ambassador John Bolton, as always, thank you for joining us this morning.